Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Eve. Eve is a type of character that cowards like me play, so whenever you get hit you can say that it was intentional because they were trying to trigger a Core of Babylon state. And of course that is a very bad joke in some sense, and it was also delivered in a very deadpan voice, so let's just move along and just pretend that never happened. So what Eve is good at is taking damage, exactly, and when you do take damage you actually get transformed into a more powerful version of yourself. This is not my final form kind of thing. And I used to do that. I just used to use the razor blade as soon as I spawned into the game, but I actually stopped doing that because I think being at 1 red heart on the first floor, there's a lot of enemies who can just outright kill you, but more importantly, there's a lot of bosses that can outright kill you. And as soon as you do that, you actually transform and then you get a bunch of speed, and I find that it's quite hard to control your velocity. It's quite easy to just accidentally bump into something, because there's a lot of enemies who do contact damage. Being at 1 red heart is just kind of an iffy proposition. So I say just wait until you have more hearts or there are some heart consumables on the floor, and then start spamming that spacebar button. And of course in this case, if you get a spirit heart, then just that's it, you know, you can just use it and not really have to worry about it, because the benefits of being in that mode is exactly the fact that you are more damage. And in Isaac, having more damage is like having more defense, because you kill enemies faster, which means there's less chance that they actually kill you. So it depends on the person, but I've actually stopped using it immediately because, like I said, I ended up dying a bit too many times for my taste, so it's just better to actually rely on other methods of dealing damage than you just necessarily your tears. And thankfully my strategy kinda paid off, because we got Lil Monstro, and Lil Monstro is damn adorable in this case, just in any case, but he did come in Afterbirth Plus, so we didn't really have him before, so if he didn't exist, he couldn't be adorable, you know, but nevertheless, he's adorable, and not only is he adorable, but he's also very useful, and he deals just a ton of damage. I don't know what it is. I think every single tier deals damage, like 3 or 4 damage, which is individual, not a lot, because he shoots like 30 of them, and his charge time is actually quite low, means you can shoot them pretty fast and in mass quantities, so it's good against bosses because they are big hitboxes, which means a lot of tiers hit them. It's good against masses of enemies because you can basically spray the shots and just hit multiple enemies. And just overall, like, it's a very decent item, and it actually carried me through the first few floors. I would think that it would use its usability or its damage as we got further, but actually it proved to be decent throughout the game, which was quite a surprise, you know. You never expect that one little familiar, especially someone like Lil Monstro, is gonna be this powerful, but then again, Lil Brimstone is the type of character or the type of familiar that actually kinda carries your run in a sense. I won't say carry, but it's definitely the item that supplements your weaknesses, because it does give you that AoE, and even if it doesn't deal that much damage, just the fact that you're able to hit multiple enemies turns out that it's a very useful proposition. And because you're basically multiplying your damage depending on how many enemies you hit, it also means that it's a very good familiar in some sense. But nevertheless, this daily was kind of colored in that familiar sense. Basically, the power we had didn't come from us shooting tiers or in being individually strong, but it came from a combination of items and familiars that we had, which gave us a lot of bombs, a lot of consumables. That long axe is obviously good for stomping on enemies, and Lil Monstro is there just to deal some AoE damage. The majority or the bulk of my damage, besides from the familiars, came from my razor blade, which doesn't usually happen, even though Eve starts out with the razor blade, and obviously that's the intended way to play her. There's usually not enough HP, and what you do early on is you trade your HP in the devil deal, so you can't really use the razor blade that comfortably, because you usually have no way of actually regenerating your spirit hearts. But in this case, thankfully, the first devil deal sucked. There was betrayal in there. I decided not to pick it up, and after on we just got a bunch of heart pickups, so a lot of heart containers, that's the word I was looking for. And when you got that, obviously Eve becomes much better, because then you can actually spam your spacebar item. As soon as you do that, you just gain more damage for the room. If you have any other synergies, like I had the spider, not the spider baby, but the item where you get hits and then you spawn a spider. So when I actually played the arcade, there was just a million hearts on the ground, and I just pressed that spacebar button until I got like 50 spiders, and then as soon as I entered the boss room, the boss just died. And obviously those little synergies might seem like they're useless, you know, nobody thinks, you know, that certain item is pretty bad because, you know, what can a little spider do? But actually, when you have a certain combination of items, that item or spiders in general can be very strong. And as it turned out, you don't need to be the way to victory isn't necessarily but just getting a lot of damage ups and a lot of tears ups, but it's also if you have kind of knowledge about a game. And I really like the runs like that which rely on you actually knowing what you're doing and kind of knowing your possibilities. So for that reason, you can see me not maybe focusing on devil deals as much, even though I did take the Spirit of the Night because I think Spirit of the Night is just a great item. It gives you flight, which is just good in of itself, but more importantly it also gives you spectral tears. And I think where you're low on damage, having spectral tears is also a very useful source of just doing things, because a lot of enemies hide behind the rocks, and the fact that you don't really have to worry about where they're located in the room, and that you don't have to maneuver to actually kind of not get stuck behind the rocks, but you're still able to shoot them, I think that's a very great positive. And again, a lot of people don't really value spectral tears, but in my opinion, spectral tears are just amazing for a weak run. Of course, if you're strong, then you don't have anything to worry about, but for a weak run, spectral tears are A+ on my list. I would always take the Ouija board, which is 1 red heart, I think, or of course 3 spirit hearts, and I don't think I would ever pass that up if I was on a semi-weak run. Of course, if you just had a super weak run, then any item is good, but also on an average run, I would say that spectral tears are quite useful. We also managed to get a new trinket here, and the trinket is Snot Goblin, I think, and what it does, is you shoot a snot at an enemy at a random chance, and they basically stick to the enemy. As long as they're stuck to the enemy, they're dealing damage over a period of time. Individually, they're not strong, but the more you shoot at them, the more they're stacked on the enemy, the more damage you do. But thankfully, like I said before, the bulk of our damage comes from our Razor Blade, and we even managed to get the rage item, Samson's Blood. I'm not sure again, but basically the item, the more damage you take, the more damage you do for that particular floor until it resets. Samson basically starts with it. So because there's a lot of red hearts after you beat bosses, I decided to use that also a bunch in the boss rush. So what ended up happening, of course, I just had a ton of damage. I was just killing enemies non-stop, and that turned out well. But also another thing that kind of turned out great, you can see that I have a lot of consumables, and every consumable in daily runs gives you a lot of points. And what I had, because I had the bomb bag and I had the coin bag, and both of these items, if you don't know, are very, very decent in daily runs because they essentially pay for themselves. Every time you pick up an item, it costs you a few amount of points, but because these items actually generate consumables for you, they're not only useful for utility reasons, but they also just generate score passively, if you think about it in that sense. And what happened, of course, as I went through the waves, it just started spawning coins and the bombs, etc. And I had the Ace of Spades, and the Ace of Spades and the Ace of Diamonds and the Ace of Hearts and the Ace of Clubs are new cards which exist, and what they do is basically turn every consumable on the floor into that particular consumable. So Ace of Diamonds, for example, turns everything into a coin. So what I decided to do, because I had the 1+1 item, again, Humbling Bundle, I think, I decided to actually just let the consumables amass in the devil deal, not in the devil deal, in the boss rush, and at the end of it, because there's just a bunch of them on the ground, I decided to use the Ace of Spades to actually fill up my key slot, and that way I think I got like 40 or 50 keys, which is obviously, again, very good. I never thought that those particular cards can be that useful, because when I got them in previous runs, they were kind of meh, they weren't really good for anything than just getting 3 or 4 bombs. But then again, like anything in Isaac can be good under certain circumstances, and because then you have a way of actually generating more keys, and because we just happened to need keys in that situation, it actually turned out very well for us, and the fact we got just a bunch of points from that. And of course, every time we pick up a key because of Humbling Model, we actually pick up 2, so that's kind of an extra benefit on top of that, and just extra amount of points. With that said, this run is coming to an end, and sadly we didn't find an AWAS rune, and an AWAS rune is obviously something you're really looking forward to if you're playing a run that goes only to Mom's Heart, because getting 1 extra floor is just such a huge benefit. You can explore so many more rooms, and because we have those passive items which give us consumables, we would get more consumables, which means more points, and just getting to the next floor will give you extra points. So for that reason, it's kind of a bummer whenever you can find it, especially because you know that someone probably did find it, but via some way. Maybe they found an arcade and they just spent more time playing it than you did, or maybe they found a way to break the game in some way and got a lot of points that way, or just find an AWAS rune that way. Yeah, I am sad in the sense that I didn't find an AWAS rune or the way to go forward, but I am happy in the sense that we're still 11th even though we didn't find it. Our damage penalty was super low, at least for me. I think I only got hit like 3 times in total on this run. Our item penalty was quite high than usual, but then again there were just a lot of items which paid for themselves, so that's not too big of an issue. Our exploration bonus could have been a bit better, but overall actually this was a very, very strong daily, and not just a strong daily, it was also a very decent daily for me. Of course my time is bad like any other time, because I'm a slow player in general and I like to explore and actually think about what I'm doing. But like I said, again, overall, we are in the double digits, almost in the single digits, and that's always great when you can see it. And especially the daily leaderboards, I don't know if the state has improved, but there were a lot of cheaters, at least in Afterbirth, which means that ranking 11th means that you actually ranked like 6th or something like that, just because there are cheaters in front of you which have like a few million score, which is obviously impossible. But yeah, you know, this daily was a fun one. I really enjoyed it. I hope that it's also noticeable just by the way I speak. Sometimes when I have a bad daily, I don't really know what to talk about, so then maybe I'm just blabbering. But in this one, I feel like I could just go on talking. But of course, everything must come to an end, including this video. So I hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I hope to see you next time.